Today, I want to talk about something that many of us rely on, often without questioning it: being hard on ourselves, using pressure as motivation, using criticism as fuel, because this too feels like common sense. After all, if you don't push yourself, if you don't hold yourself accountable, if you don't stay on yourself, what would happen? That question alone keeps a lot of people in line. For many of us, being hard on ourselves feels responsible, like evidence that we care, like proof we're not lazy or indifferent. It can even feel protective, as if harshness is what keeps things from falling apart. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying this habit came from nowhere. For a lot of people, self-pressure started early. It was how things got done, how expectations were met, how approval was earned, how safety was maintained. So, of course, this feels normal. But I've been noticing something. Being hard on myself doesn't actually feel motivating. It feels tense. It feels heavy, contracted, urgent even. It feels like I'm bracing against something. And when I slow down enough to notice, there's usually fear underneath it. Fear that if I soften, I'll stop. Fear that if I let up, I'll fall behind. A fear that kindness would turn into collapse. That fear makes sense. Many of us were taught implicitly that pressure is what produces results, that ease is suspicious, that softness is risky. So self-attack gets reframed as discipline. Harshness becomes a virtue. And over time, it stops feeling harsh at all. It just feels like the voice of responsibility. But there's a cost. When harshness is the primary motivator, everything becomes effortful. Rest becomes earned. Satisfaction feels temporary. Relief feels conditional. And no matter how much you accomplish, there's often a sense that it's not enough. Not yet, not quite, because the voice that pushes is rarely satisfied. I've also noticed how easily harshness turns inward. A mistake becomes evidence. A pause becomes laziness. A moment of doubt becomes weakness. The internal tone hardens, and we don't usually question it because it sounds familiar. It sounds like common sense. What's interesting is that being hard on ourselves often gets confused with taking responsibility. But responsibility doesn't actually require self-attack. In fact, self-attack often makes it harder to see clearly. It narrows attention. It speeds things up. It creates urgency where none is required. And urgency rarely leads to wisdom. I've noticed moments when I've softened, not because I gave up, but because that harshness wasn't helping. And what surprised me was this: I didn't become careless. I actually became more present, more responsive, more honest about what was actually possible. And strangely, more effective. Not driven, but available. There's a difference between motivation and coercion. Harshness coerces, it threatens. Kindness doesn't threaten, it steadies. And that steadiness turns out to be a much more reliable place to move from. This is another place where common sense starts to wobble. Because common sense tells us if you don't push, nothing will happen. But lived experience tells a different story. That when the pressure drops, attention widens. Choices become clearer. Energy returns. Not all at once, but honestly. This doesn't mean never applying effort. It means not using violence as fuel. It means not confusing cruelty with discipline. It means questioning the assumption that you have to be hard on yourself in order to be responsible. What if responsibility didn't require self-attack? What if kindness wasn't indulgence, but clarity? What if nothing needed fixing in order for movement to happen? I'm not offering a new standard here. I'm not saying stop being hard on yourself. I'm simply wondering what becomes possible when harshness is no longer the default. When pressure isn't mistaken for care. When the voice inside doesn't need to threaten you to get your attention. So if you notice yourself being hard on yourself today or later or tomorrow or next week, again, you may not need to change it. You might simply notice the tone. Notice what it's trying to prevent. Notice what it assumes would happen without it. And let that noticing be enough.